that I said to write green space on, which was the first paragraph on 14. But now we're at the paragraph that goes to the highest realm. You with me? Okay, highlight. The highest realm within the comic terrain is the paradisal. Here, grace and forgiveness supplant even mercy. So circle supplant. Man is lifted up into his own realm beyond himself, one that he has not gained by his own effort. Stop. Okay, so supplant means replace. See, I look better in this. Like, this is a good side of me, I think, versus being up there. You guys are seeing my good side in the video. My makeup looks really good today. It's nice and it's actually clear. What'd you say?
Pop off.
Pop off.
Said it at the same time.
Pop off. I'm taking a picture with Tyra's camera right now. She's looking at me right here with her camera. She's like, I'm sorry, what are we reading? We are reading page 14 of the Dr. Cowan comedy essay. Okay, so what this means is that in the paradisal realm, which Dr. Cowan is gonna say the only way we can get into the paradisal is through basically Dante's Divine Comedy, where we see the light of God. So if you've ever had like a divine experience, where you felt like maybe you were levitating or you felt like you were out of body, and I'm talking about like not drug induced, but I mean like you legit feel like you've been sort of possessed by a higher spirit, or you may have had a near-death experience, like someone who almost drowns, or you know what I'm saying, who comes close to death, who sees the white light. She says that we don't live in any kind of paradisal realm unless you experience something like that. And the only time it's really been written is in Dante's Divine Paradise. Because what happens here is that man, that's us, we are lifted up into a realm beyond ourselves. And we don't do this by our own effort. In other words, we don't do the lifting. If you feel like you've had an out-of-body experience, you didn't do anything. Someone just like some spirit possessed you. I feel like I'm teaching a class on like the occult. Okay, here we go. Aristophanes' Birds portrays this realm symbolically. Dante's Paradiso, Shakespeare's Tempest, Faulkner's Reivers body it forth. Highlight this. Its mood is merriment and joy, its motive pleasure and freedom. Deception and disguise are revealed to be what they are in reality: magic, grace, and art. Here, love is supreme. One is not required by one's own efforts to save the day. The natural tendency of things is upward. The pretty girl has become the vessel of reality and grace. Stop. Basilea, Beatrice, Portia, Miranda. In the modern world, that's like our world now, she has been victimized and injured, but the quality of which she is the bearer remains undamaged. Sonia Marmeladov, Mademoiselle de Vianney, Everby Corinthia, and Linda Snopes. Very few literary works take place entirely in this realm, perhaps only Dante's Paradiso, but many make their way to it, stumblingly, feelingly. Highlight. The mark of it is not simply romantic love, the attainment of the beautiful lady, but the movement beyond her to that of which she borne witness, universal love. All right, so this is very profound in that the woman, or the feminine in this case, is not even real. She just, although Dr. Cowan does give some literary examples, because she becomes the vessel of the divine. And she does give the example of a gal named Sonia Marmeladov. And so your senior year, you guys are going to read Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. It's a Russian novel. It's one of my favorites. But Sonia, she's in love. Her boyfriend, his name is Rodion Raskolnikov, but people just call him Rodya. And Raskolnikov thinks that he can just kill these two old ladies, these two old pawnbrokers, simply because he can. He thinks that they're vermin. Like, he literally calls them vermin, right? And he only wants to kill the pawnbroker, but when he shows up to kill the pawnbroker, her sister is also there. So he kills them both with an axe. right? An axe. So he feels, after this, he kind of has like PTSD, and he has this for a long time, and he ends up hiding in his room. He goes through all the symptoms of like super depression. He can't believe what he's done. He wants to commit suicide, but he has this woman, Sonia, and she basically walks him out of the hell that he's in, that he's created for himself, and she makes him repent. And how he repents is by kissing the earth. So kind of like Paul, right? It's almost like Paul finds that repentance, or the will to live from Mother Nature, or the womb of nature. Raskolnikov finds his first act of repentance is to kiss the earth. And then he goes to jail, and at the end, Sonia gets him to bathe in the river. And one of the classic marks of literature is that when someone gets in a river or any body of water, if someone goes down and back up again, they've been baptized into a new life. That's the whole point of baptism in Christianity, right? And so anytime in literature, if you see someone go underwater, it's a baptism, okay? It means they're going to be a new person after that. If in a movie you see someone go underwater and they come out and like the water is like shining against their face, they're a new person. It's just a classic literary symbol of baptism. And so Dr. Cowan, she gives Sonia as an example because Sonia represents the vessel of new life, right? Because she's the one who gets him. Remember, it's the feminine womb that restores life to someone, right? So initially the womb gives life, but the feminine, the divine feminine, like someone like Sonia or Beatrice or Linda Snopes, these other examples, they give life, they give new life, if you will, via the womb of their divine presence. Does that make sense? Make sense online, people? Kind of? Okay. So that's how the feminine changes over from the three realms. So in the infernal realm, the feminine is victimized, right? She and also we can include children, walks out into the land that is the infernal realm and is just basically victimized, just eaten up for her beauty. And then in the purgatorial realm, the feminine is desired, like the beautiful girl was desired but not had per se, and then like I said, in the paradisal realm, she is a symbol. You don't really have her. Like you could also use something like the Virgin Mary. You don't have her. She's the symbol of beauty and grace, right? Does that make sense, you guys? All right. Next page, 15. What is the terrain of comedy? What is the slant of light, the curving of space that identifies it? One might attempt to visualize it, though the actual image remains elusive, circle elusive, revealing itself only to an interior sense. But the intuition of place is unmistakable, and perhaps only a metaphor can do justice. Highlight. The image of comedy has the largesse, circle that, the room of a land, a terrain. Stop. Okay, so largesse means generosity. Elusive, it means hard to see or find. So you've probably heard, oh, he eluded me. Well, you couldn't find him. He eluded the criminal eluded the police or something. You hear that quite a bit.
Can you restate the supplant definition?
Supplant, it means to what did I say supplant means? Replace, yeah, replace, sorry. Sometimes I give different words for different class periods, and I sometimes forget which ones I give to. They all mean the same thing. There is darkness in that land. This is the land of comedy. We might begin by saying, but in its mellow atmosphere, shadows move before the protagonist and shorten in the course of day. The path cutting through the hills and valleys, crossing the wide plains and winding up in a gentle slope, is one that various characters trudge upon for only partially completed journeys, stopping along the way for retreats in woods or caves, or gathering together at intervals for festivities. Homer, Aristophanes, Dante, Chaucer, and Shakespeare have given us specific metaphors for this constant image. Highlight, but the geography of this terrain informs all comedy, whether dark and bitter or full of mirth and delight, whatever the local territory or temporal code. Stop. It informs each genuine work of comic art, not as a map or an outline would do, but as an image. The image is complex, containing an order and an interplay of values, which in each comedy must be worked out by mutual accommodation. The comic terrain, then, is a figure of the permanent laws of being seen as under a single aspect, a governing figure that provides the most humble comedy with its power. Highlight. It is a correlative for the hope, and then finally one realizes the experience of being loved, of being cared about, and guarded and showered with tender mercies. If the high peak of lyric is insight into knowing and loving, then the corresponding high point in comedy lies not in knowing, but in being shown, being led into the harmony of the cosmos to receive better than one deserves. Not revelation then, but receptivity leads to its summit, its permitted highest vista. Stop. What does all that mean? Anybody? Does comedy, show us like God, like a lyric insight would? The answer, it's kind of a hard question. The answer is no. What comedy shows us is that we're loved. And that we have, as she explains in the metaphor above with the path, so like every day is a path for you. You get up and you see, and she says, you see the shadows move across, right? You see so you see the people move across you as you walk down your path, whatever path it is. Every day's like this. And you just kind of keep going. The path cutting through the hills and valleys, partially completed journeys. You go back to your home, then you do it again the next day. And the whole point of comedy is the experience of being loved, being cared for, and being showered with mercy. So the whole point of comedy is to know that despite the fact that people could be dying around you, people could be victimized around you, you yourself, you the comic hero, are still alive. Therefore, that's good. Right? And that the higher the realm of comedy, the more love there is available. And the closer you get to the lyrical insight of, as she says, knowing and loving, the lyrical insight of knowing what love is. Like it's very hard to live in lyric every single second of the day because it's basically impossible. It's like going back to the Garden of Eden. You can have good days and you can have bad days, but you're never going to have I think one of the problems we make as Americans, and this is maybe our epic sensibility, is that we think we have to always be rising. We don't realize that it's actually a parabola, right? It actually just kind of goes like this. That's a parabola, am I right? Okay, it's been a while. But life is a series of up and downs, and that you get breaks along the way. With epic, you're constantly rising, and then you're maintaining the good city. And then you move. With tragedy, it's a complete slope downwards, and it ends in the abyss. Which, if you're close enough to the tragedy, you could die and be a victim of the tragedy. Did you guys read Romeo and Juliet last year? So, Mercutio, Benvolio, anybody who dies in the process of Romeo and Juliet trying to figure out what they're doing.
The regular classes read Romeo and Juliet.
Okay. What'd you guys read?
To take off the coat.
You guys probably should have all read both. I think that maybe you were planning on reading Romeo in the spring, but then it didn't happen.
We didn't have.
Yeah, because there was no
Spring break
school.
happened and they said,
Spring break happened, and then we were on spring break forever. Okay. Okay, so are there any questions about that particular part? Anybody online or anybody in here? Any questions about this part at all? Tien said he read Romeo and Juliet in the 7th grade. That's good.
Oh, I read the film.
You did? Yeah.
And then I came here and read it again. So
Nothing wrong with reading it again. I've read it several times as well. All right. Any questions out there in Zoom land? Okay. So next paragraph. What are the laws and customs of its land? Comedy. Acknowledged even by those who flout them. Let me see here. Its supreme law, of course, is love. Its concern is with physis, the flow of being that animates and connects all things. Circle physis or physis, and then underline the flow of being that animates and connects all things, or highlight it. Highlight this. Comedy takes place in the fallen world. That's where we're at. We're in a fallen world. Why? Because we fell out of the Garden of Eden. We fell from perfection. And it begins and establishes disorder, usually with an old regime in control, where people have lived by law, by reason, or by custom, neglecting wholeness, pleasure, and love. It moves toward the recapturing of those qualities by ingenuity and audacity. So circle audacity and circle ingenuity.
Are we still highlighting?
Yes, we're still highlighting. It may resort to the fantastic in order to effect a needed break with, I'll stop there to give you definitions. Okay, so ingenuity means genius-like. Genius-like. And audacity means to dare to be bold. To dare to be bold. Okay, top of 16. It may resort to the fantastic in order to effect a needed break with routine. Keep highlighting. And it pulls others along with it in a creative recapturing of community with friends and helpers serving as guardians and counselors. Its justice is mercy and forgiveness. Its supreme fiction is the journey of the soul. Its virtues, faith, hope, and charity. Its vices are the 7 deadly sins. Its mode of action is deception and delay, since if fortune and not fate is to be the governing authority, one must do whatever is necessary to stave off the ultimate final defeat. Stop. The ultimate fatal defeat. What is that? D-E-A-T-H, death, death, death. Yes, death. So basically, like I just said, all can fall around you. People can get victimized. You could get victimized, but you're still alive. And that's the ultimate, and that's what comedy does. It gives you another chance. Life must go on at any cost, since in comedy, life can blossom again, even out of impossibility, if only the final unthinkable event, death, does not occur. Life, the elan vital, is far more important than established morality. Highlight this. Life, the elan vital, is far more important than established morality. And to terminate the life, and wait. Since the very continuance of the human species is in question. However, in the end, the comic seeks to reestablish morality and reanimate the life of moral and spiritual forms. Stop. So remember, comedy is at its best teaching. It's a teaching a lesson. What's the moral of the story, we always say, right? So what's the moral of the story? And then you should be able to tell me what life lesson was learned out of the thing you read. And comedy, one thing about comedy, and I'll give you guys a comparison with comedy and tragedy as soon as I can, probably next class period. Comedy doesn't care about morality. It just cares about staying alive. So if you have to rob a convenience store to get some bread and some milk for your kids, you're going to do it because life is the end result. Life is the goal, not morals. You can't eat morals, right? However, comedy does seek to reestablish morality. You can't reestablish morality if you're hungry. You see what I'm saying? Or tragedy, morality is huge. People will die so that they don't have to rob a store to feed their kids. You know what I'm saying? So tragedy is as we see the comparison chart, it's much more stuck in its ways. That's why it's more masculine. Comedy is more feminine. It allows time and space. Masculine, no, not so much. Remember, masculine moves fast and doesn't stop to think about how things could be different. The terrain of comedy is, in fine, an image of the world as organic rather than mechanic, as living, interrelating, aspiring, growing, and healing. It is a vision of matter participating in spirit, of grace permeating nature, of the body being lifted up like Bottom in an overwhelming and irrational joy. So Bottom's going to be a character in Midsummer that we're about to read. The authors of the essays in this volume, this book that I have in front of me, would conceive of this comic territory, I think, as having, like Gaul, a tripartite division, and would see each comedy as positioned chiefly in one of those three regions. They would agree that comedy represents one of the major spatializations of reality in which literature is capable, would not limit its presence to drama, and would view individual examples of comedy throughout history without need of direct influence between writers. And finally, these critics might agree, though I'm making perhaps an ungrounded assumption, that the action of all comedy possesses the polysemousness, circle that Dante attributed to his Commedia. That, if we translate the medieval exegetic schema into our own terms, circle exegetics and schema, archetypically, you should know what that means, highlight the comic action is the psyche moving out of stasis into the rhythm of life, the life force. Culturally, it is the flexibility of the community prevailing over rigid and oppressive custom. Psychologically, it is the heart finding its right order, its abundance in love. And anagogically, it is the soul's participation through komos, the marriage feast, and universal blessedness. Stop. So I'm gonna have to go look these words up. Just give me a second. But though there lies behind these essays a more or less shared theory of comedy, the essays themselves are in general exercises in practical rather than theoretical criticism. That is, this is the difference between practical and theoretical. They examine specific comic elements or themes and specific comic literary works or groups of works. They make no attempt at completeness. What the essays do, however, is to adumbrate, go ahead and circle that, the comic terrain. They show it as a world in which people must keep going, they must endure, and they show if they do keep going, whether in hope or desperation, they finally, so to speak, highlight this, catch the bus. When they have caught it, even if they've fallen and skinned their knees and made fools of themselves in the process, they are surely on it and going to it with its destination as if they had arrived a couple hours before departure and decorously availed themselves of the best possible seats. The point of arrival is the same, and, at least for those comedies that take us the whole distance, or even imply it, the end is nothing short of joy, transcendence, and love. Okay, this image is amazing. And I always give this as the example when I read this. In fact, 2 years ago, I taught one class of AP English 4, and in it, I had 3 sections. In my second period B, the class of 2018, I had 5 of the top 10 in the same class. I had the valedictorian, the salutatorian, and like 6th, 7th, and 8th or something, right? And the valedictorian speech, she gave this example. This very example right here about catching the bus. She said, here we are. I was the first person on the bus, and there's a person who was the 545th person on the bus. But we're on this bus, and we're all graduating together. Make sense? Totally makes sense. And that's why comedy is so beautiful, and I kind of get chills thinking about it. Because it doesn't matter if you're number one, if you got on the bus 55 minutes before you were supposed to and you found the best seat and you like got all cozied in and got everything ready, or if you were the guy at the very end who was like, wait up for me, right? And the bus stops and you get on. Guess what? Caught the bus. You're going to the same place. Doesn't matter if you were the first or the 545th, you're on the bus. And that's what I love about comedy, is that it gives you those chances. Once you get past your high school graduation, it's kind of like next step, right? Next epic adventure. Adumbrate here means to describe. So on page 17, adumbrate means to describe. What else did I have you circle? Exegetic. Well, I'm going to stop this video.